Today, let's take a little break from the test server, beautiful people, because it is movie time. Tank Coach Armor episode over here. Another Wargaming's tank coaching series video, actually. And so many of you sent me this link and sent me this video already asking, have you checked it out? What do you think about that? Did Wargaming do a good job explaining how the armor works? And I thought, you know what? We haven't done those type of videos for a while. Now, reaction kind of videos. So let's jump into it, and hopefully I'm able to give you some extra tips and tricks as well. But before we're going to jump into that, a quick public service announcement about the discounts. So today the free XP conversion discount ended, and it was replaced by Tech 3 vehicle discounts, and also 50% off from the garage slots as well if you are in the need for those. So if you have been thinking about picking up some new Tech 3s in the lower tier, up to 50% discount over here, 30% discount on tier 6 to tier 7 vehicles, excluding the newest lines over here, as you can see, and also 15% discount on tier 8 to tier 10 vehicles. So, you know, if you didn't remember that this discount existed, now you do. But guys, let's jump into this video now. Tank Coach Armor in World of Tanks, and you know, hopefully this will make all of us a better player. I haven't watched it myself, so I do not know what to expect. We're kind of reacting it to it together, and let's see how Wargaming did. How good they know their game, basically.
Hello, tankers. I'm your instructor. Today, you'll learn all you need to know about blocking damage and survival.
Good. We need training ground. Come on, we need this in the game. Please, Wargaming, please. I want to be on this training ground, and not working as a training room, but this training ground where I could join alone, or maybe add a couple bots as, you know, for target shooting, target practicing. Please, who would be up for that, guys?
Its Majesty, armor. Every tank has it, and it's different for all of them, but all armor plates follow the same rules.
True.
Nominal armor is an armor plate's thickness at a perpendicular angle. Effective armor is armor thickness at the impact angle. At sharp angles, it will differ significantly from nominal armor. That's why the IS-7 only has 150 millimeters of front armor on paper, but in reality, it has much more.
Indeed, and this is why IS-7's frontal armor, for example, is kind of a black hole. Like, you have a shite ton of penetration, but you simply keep deflecting off your shells. It is simply because of angling. So far, it is amazing video, guys. Okay, I shut up now and I stop trolling.
Effective armor is affected by shell normalization, which we talked about in the previous episode. Quick reminder. Armor-piercing shells neutralize the armor slope best of all. APC shells are less effective, while heat and HE shells don't turn on impact at all.
Yes, and this is why AP rounds are my favorite type of rounds in the game as well, especially high penetration AP rounds, such as Hori line, for example. It simply melts armor, as I like to call it. You know, it doesn't melt armor, but you know, just as an example, if you have 320 penetration APCR, it can easily bounce off from more armors or more angles than 275 AP round or 280 millimeter penetration AP round, basically. This is just, you know, if you have a fast AP round with high penetration, this is just, it goes through objects, everything. It's just love, right? Followed by HE, which goes through stuff, APCR, you know, but, you know, normalization issues over here, and heat, well, that slaps if you are able to hit the armor.
Effective armor doesn't play any role if a shell hits a tank at a ricochet angle. The shell will just bounce off and go about its shell business. In the process, it might hit another part of the tank or even another vehicle, but only once. There are no double ricochets in the game. Ricochets heavily depend on the type of shell. If you're being hit with APCR shells, you can expose thin armor at an angle, but if it's a heat shell, you'll need the sharpest angle possible. If your armor isn't penetrated, the shell won't go inside the tank and cause damage. That makes sense, and even if it is penetrated, it's still not over. Your vehicle will lose as many hit points as the enemy shell causes with one shot. It's important to understand that hit points are a resource that can and should be spent if it's worth it, but we'll come to that later.
True. And I see that so often. I see it so often, especially at the end of the game as well, where people just do not want to pay a couple extra bucks for the repair pill, even though it would speed up the win, it would even, you know, make a difference in the game. Sometimes you just need to invest some hit points. Exactly perfect situation over here. Full HP tank, a one-shot tank. You go in, you take the hit from the enemy tank, and two of you can do the job.
A resource
easily,
that can
right?
and should be spent if it's worth it. But we'll come to that
perfect
later.
showcase over here.
Screens are armor plates put outside the main armor. Penetrating them won't cause damage because after getting through a screen, a shell still needs to penetrate the vehicle.
I really, like, next time, if, I don't know if anyone from Wargaming is watching this, who is editing this, next time I would really like to have those tooltips up here for a little bit longer. AP and APCR shells penetrate screens better than heat and HE shells, yes. But, you know, those disappear very quickly, like I missed a couple screens over there. Anyway, moving on.
Penetrating them won't cause damage because after getting through a screen, a shell still needs to penetrate the vehicle's main hull or turret armor. External modules also often work as screens. For example, tracks and gun can work as additional layer of protection. Each module has its own durability. That's why small caliber guns can only take out a track at the second or third attempt.
Yeah.
Now we know how armor works. Let's talk about...
So basically, if you didn't know that, the tracks also have hit points. You know, just like your tank has hit points, like, let's say, E100, you know, with hardening stuff, you can boost it up to 3000. Your tank has 3000 hit points. Same goes to the tracks. Those are invisible hit points, but let's say, you know, 400 hit points. If you have 200 alpha damage gun, you need to hit the tracks 2 times to delete the hit points down to 0 and to detrack the vehicle. You know, just in case you didn't know that.
Take out a track at the second or third attempt.
Invisible hit points, so-called.
Now we know how armor works. Let's talk about how to use it. It's important to note that armor is not tied to any specific vehicle type. Sometimes a medium tank can block damage better than some heavies, let alone assault tank destroyers. Staying far away and not using their armor is a crime. Regardless of vehicle type, frontal armor is generally thicker at the top and thinner at the bottom. The turret and upper glacis block damage better than the lower glacis. You can and should hide it, and there are several ways to do so. Classic side scraping. This way you can hide the lower glacis and only expose your side at an angle. Players often overestimate their sides and angle the hull too much. Don't do that.
Well, you know, in this case, honestly, I wouldn't blame the player too much. This guy was angling against Dezrng, and Grunman just decided to be, or maybe, what is it? Is it Emil? Anyway, yes, showcasing this situation over here with basically one of the best side scrapers in the game, 705A. 705A is absolutely nuts, guys. When it comes to the side scraping, you can see that over here, for example. It can, you know, this is the angle 705A would be able to shoot you. Like, let's say here we have invisible wall, right? You have basically nothing to penetrate. You have nothing to penetrate. Everything is going to be a bounce, 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 unless you load very high heat penetration, while this tank can slap you left, right, and center. Even if you load a premium round, for example, you know, it's still a bounce. 705A is one of the better side scrapers. You can't go over too much over here because, yes, 10, as you can see, you start to devalue the most forward part of your armor, right?
And overestimate their sides and angle the hull too much. Don't do that. If you have thin sides, use a sharp ricochet angle. But remember the 3 caliber.
For example, if your side armor or sides are 50mm thick, shells of caliber higher than 150mm won't ricochet. Yes, this is the overmatching rule. Basically, it needs a 151mm caliber gun, right?
If you have thin sides, use a sharp ricochet angle. But remember the 3 caliber rule. Note that some vehicles' fenders are easily penetrated. This can sometimes make side scraping tricky, especially if your opponent is a little below you. Keep in mind that you expose your turret.
I was really actually thinking about that. If is Wargaming going to cover that? So far, I have to say this is actually pretty nice stuff over here. What they're sharing, you know, the 3 caliber rule. They're emphasizing that as well. And once again, defenders, you can shoot them from underneath, like auto pen basically into this tank, and especially if you're on a lower ground.
Are easily penetrated. This can sometimes make side scraping tricky, especially if your opponent is a little below you. Keep in mind that you expose your turret and part of your upper glacis when side scraping. If they're vulnerable, that's a problem. Some tanks can avoid that by reverse side scraping. This technique is very specific and not for dynamic close combat, but sometimes it lets you become almost invulnerable. You can also first bait your opponent to take a shot by showing only your side.
Yeah, true. All very nice tips over here. And once again, reverse side scraping. This is way more advanced strategy over here, like especially versus, especially with IS-3, let's say. Let's pick IS-3 over here as an example, as they used it in this video as well. Yes, you can, let's say you are under angle like that. Yes, you can reverse side scrape in IS-3, but you have to, you know, make sure that you are not going to over angle and over peak your rear. This is like by far the most common mistake I see players do, is they just drive out too much. You basically still need to hug the wall while you do that, or the enemy needs to hug the wall and can't attack you right away, like they showed in the video as well. IS-3 was quite far off from the wall itself, but you know, it was good because the enemy could not have repositioned over here, you know, could not have pushed forward to slap this, the ass of the IS-3. So very nice. Once again, it's more advanced dynamic. This is where players make like more mistakes than usually, but it's very effective, very, very effective on some days.
Sometimes it lets you become almost invulnerable.
Yes, exactly.
You can also first bait your opponent to take a shot by showing only your side. Using terrain. If you attack the enemy from behind terrain folds, you can hide your lower glacis or even your entire hull. But a tank needs good gun depression angles to do so. If they're not enough, you can turn a little and try to position your vehicle so the front of your tank is lowered toward the enemy. If that doesn't help, try to bait them into shooting, then roll out to hit them back. When blocking damage, consider your turret position and hull shape.
That first peak wasn't very good.
A pike nose provides maximum protection in the upper glacis in this position. When the tank faces the enemy directly, you only need to turn it if the enemy is aiming at your lower glacis. Tanks with rear turret placement are usually well suited for side scraping, but perform worse on uneven ground.
So over here in this situation, like I would never, you know, peek like this guy over here.
If the enemy is aiming at your lower glacis.
Like over here, you know, just shoot that, it is insta-pen. Like, I don't see anyone who usually would go at lower plate under angle like that. If you want to push it, you need to push it with this type of pikey nose, face on, and just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. You know, just tiny little wiggles, A and T keys, and hope they miss your lower plate or the bounce and miss their shot. But, you know, this type of angling, not recommended, honestly.
Places. Tanks with rear turret placement are usually well suited for side scraping, but perform worse on uneven ground. Some vehicles have good armor in the lower glacis, which allows them not only to side scrape, but also block damage with their hull front at an angle. We mentioned baiting for a shot a few times. You can do this with any part of your tank that the enemy can't penetrate. It can even be your rear. as long as it's at a sharp angle. These tactics will let you safely fire at an unloaded enemy. Brawl is a situation when two tanks are at fist-fighting distance from each other. In the brawl, you will often not be able to depress your gun toward the enemy's lower glacis, so it's important to hit other weak spots such as cupolas, the turret ring, driver's hatch, and so on. Also, prevent the enemy from hitting yours. You can also block damage without any cover. To do so, players usually angle their vehicle to increase its front armor. At the same time, it's useful to dance with your hull left and right, constantly changing the effective armor. Don't angle it too much, or the enemy will penetrate the side, or worse, the wheel. This way, you'll not only take damage, but also be immobilized. So sometimes it's better to roll at the enemy head-on. When your tank is stationary, it's vulnerable, and if your track is destroyed in a crossfire, it's best to use a repair kit. Sometimes it's worth saving, since it repairs other modules such as the engine, fuel tanks, and ammo rack. Now let's talk about how to increase your chances of survival before battle.
All right, so far, yes, once again, very nice. The dancing over here, you know, one like top tip as well, if you know enemy reload time roughly, you can give them your sight. Like let's say enemy has 8-second reload. If you can do the calculating or counting in your head, just count to 6-7 seconds while you give them your sight and then turn towards them slightly. Usually that throws people off as well, for example. But yeah, very good so far.
Of all the crew perks, repairs is the most useful for survival. It's one of the most important perks for all tanks, except for SPGs and sniper TDs. With repairs, your destroyed track will be fixed much quicker, letting you find cover even when the repair kit is cooling down. Another important perk is firefighting. It will come in handy if you play with a food consumable instead of a fire extinguisher. The safe stowage perk will help tanks that often lose their hats. Other secondary perks decrease the chance of fire, improve the dispersion of a damaged gun, allow the commander to replace injured crew members, and so on.
Yeah, over here, I would say firefighting definitely must have. Safe storage, I would not only pick for tanks that, you know, blow up easily, I would pick it, basically I'm picking it on every single tank. It's not only about blowing up, but many times they simply make your ammo rack yellow, or they simply damage your ammo rack without blowing it up, and it is still, you know, annoying, making your reload time much longer. So this is a must-have. Preventative maintenance, this is the chance of an engine fire, you know, on like German tanks, let's say. Back in the days, who remembers the frontal fires, the like gearbox fires, basically what German tanks had. It happened like every single battle. But this is, you know, I would say more situational for some specific tanks. It is not the skill what I pick very often. Also same about armor, especially after the reusable consumables were introduced. So, you know, if you don't have like 6 crew skills, you can easily skip that as well. Check of all trades, that's nice.
They can also be trained, but not first. There's also equipment that improves survival. The most useful piece is improved hardening. It's pretty much a must-have for heavy tanks and assault TDs, and can sometimes be useful for medium tanks too.
It's absolute meta now.
Improved hardening increases a vehicle's HP, and equally importantly, boosts track's HP.
With this equipment on, and I would say, like as I mentioned, the hardening now is basically like meta tank. I'm using it on so many medium tanks as well right now. Actually, it's just so good, and in my opinion, the best hardening for many tanks, heavy tanks, is the experimental hardening now, because it also adds the best stat from the improved configuration, which is internal module durability. It is also added in the hardening with experimental hardening. Yes, you get a little bit less hit points, but you get one of the most important things. This lowers your ammo racks, this lowers your fires, and then all those things.
Equipment. The enemy will have to fire at your rollers 2 or even 3 times to immobilize your vehicle.
Yep. Meta.
Vehicles that are prone to engine, fuel tank, or ammo rack damage can be equipped with improved configuration. It gives a number of useful bonuses, including...
Exactly. This is simply like the best thing is taken from this and put into experimental hardening. This one.
Higher internal module durability. Spall liner can also be useful in certain situations. The Experimental Survival Improvement Suite combines the bonuses of improved hardening and configuration. So, we learned how to block damage, trained repairs, and mounted improved hardening. Time to battle. You roll to your position and get caught in the crossfire. When the enemy attacks from different directions, you'll have trouble blocking damage. Change your position and hide from all opponents except the one you're firing at. You can't survive the crossfire. In another battle, you might be able to block damage perfectly, but an enemy with a high caliber will load HE shells. These shells always cause damage, even when they don't penetrate armor. If an HE shell hits a thick armor plate, it won't cause much damage. But if you try to side scrape with thin sides, it can cause a lot more. Remember that if you can penetrate your opponent in return, you have the upper hand. You'll damage them more with penetrations than they will you.
What? Where are you aiming, brother?
That if you can penetrate your opponent in return, you have the upper hand. You'll damage them more.
Now that is paid actor, guys. Type was shooting the lower plate all the time, and now when it's time to take it out, hey, let's try the thickest armor in the game.
Or with penetrations than they will you with HE shells. If the enemy has strong armor, don't just stand there and absorb damage. Change your position or wait for a better chance to shoot. This also applies to enemy fire from distant bushes or artillery. If you're under fire and can't hit them back, you can change position or remain unspotted for some time. The enemy will be distracted by your allies, while you continue firing. To take less damage from artillery, remember that it can't reach you everywhere. Pay attention to how much of it there is at the start of the battle. If there are 2 or 3 SPGs against you, it's probably better to use a position covered from their fire, or just accept the fact that sometimes you can't avoid artillery damage.
Just sometimes, guys, accept it. Yes, indeed. Sometimes just accept it. You hear it? Just let it go, guys.
Finally,
it is what it is.
The most important question: do you always need to try to block damage? No. In addition to armor, your vehicle has a pool of hit points that you need to trade. There's nothing wrong with taking a hit if it means you get to finish off an opponent, or taking 400 HP of damage and dishing out 750 in return.
Yes.
You can intentionally receive damage to unload the opponent and give your allies a chance to destroy them. Or you can cover an ally with your vehicle to let them survive. All in all, no matter how reliable your side-scraping or hull-down position is, you don't always need to do it until the end of battle. There comes a time in almost every battle when you need to forget about blocking damage and just roll forward. That's it for today.
True story, actually. Just roll forward. But you know, even if you are rolling forward, you still should try to block the damage. You know, you still should wiggle a little bit. Maybe they're going to miss the lower plate, hit your tracks. Maybe they panic a little bit because they see you coming in. You should still try to block the damage, but at the same time, you know, you are, yes, pushing in, knowing that the incoming damage may happen, but still try.
Always need to do it until the end of battle. There comes a time in all and just roll forward. True. That's it for today. Show this video to your friends who are still side-scraping at a straight angle. Next time, we'll talk about the view range system. See you soon.
View range system, nice. That should be interesting as well, because that can be confusing, view range and camo. That would be very, very nice. But guys, what do you think about that? I think that was actually very, very nicely put together video with quite a lot of tips for you to pick up if you are, especially if you are a newer player, or I don't know, player who is coming back into the game and has not, you know, don't remember anything, or maybe you picked up something, couple tips over here. Yes, I do recommend this video actually. Pretty damn nice. So, ladies and gentlemen, a little a movie time with Wargaming over here. Tank Coach, this is one of the latest articles as well, and this is what you wanted to see. Hopefully I gave you a couple extra tips, or maybe I explained something a little bit more and a little bit further. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for being part of this video with me today. I will catch you next time with something else. Stay awesome, stay beautiful, take care, and bye.